I finally did it. I pulled the trigger on an Arcade1up machine. I'm going to tell you why I waited so long, why I chose now to do it, and give you a full review from someone that was old enough to know when this one first came out. Hello, and welcome to Teaching Retro. This is our first episode ever about Arcade1up. The reason being is I never got into it because the price point, even though it was good at first, the product had a really bad reputation for being shoddy, not really holding up together, and the screens were small. A lot of bad things that were swirling around it. They upped their game, the product got better, but so did their prices as far as going up $600–700 for some of their units. It just didn't make sense for me. Tie that into the fact that if you have anything to do with Raspberry Pi or you're doing a Windows machine that's dedicated for emulation, and it just didn't seem like I needed a machine that only had 2, 4, even 10 games on it when I had these things that did everything. Then along came this generation. I'll call it 2.5 because it's not the high-end games, but more along the lines of portables. There's the Countercades, which are a little heavy to do, but they're smaller, and these Partycades. Their first generations weren't the best either. Single speaker, really shoddy controls, didn't have anything lit, smaller screens. Now it's the second generation of Partycade, and from what I've seen, they're pretty good. Now the reasons why I finally did decide to pull the trigger on an Arcade1up. This particular Partycade was under $200 on QVC. I actually had to get a subscription to that because I've never ever used it, but everything went smoothly and I got it within 4 or 5 days. What's in the box? The unit comes completely already set up, ready to go. Open the box. This is the first thing that slides out. The power cord comes next, and you can just set it down and be up and playing. It's pretty amazing. In the box itself is directions. If you're not very mechanically inclined or electronically inclined, you can use them. I didn't even open this up. That's how easy this thing is. Also inside the box, if you're going to be using this and maybe have some small children or friends over that you're worried about it tipping, you can put these right on the sides. They slide, they screw right in, and they're even T-molded, so it looks pretty good. There are other pieces in this box. It's rather well done. There's hooks you can put on it, so when you bring it to somebody's house or even in your own, you can hang it on a door. And then the ones that I'm going to use and include in a later video, this mounts on the back. There's two holes, which I'll show pics on, and this clips into it and mounts to anywhere on any wall you want. I've got an arcade, so I'm lucky enough to have that. This is actually going to get mounted in the arcade. I was on a bubble on this thing at first, not anymore, and let's see why. There's a few things about this generation that are a little better than the last Partycades. It actually has 2 speakers. Turn it on, you get a lit marquee. That alone is pretty cool. 17-inch screen. This thing's going to fire up in a couple seconds. Why specifically Defender? Because, as you can see right here, it's the exact layout of the Defender buttons. Even a full-size Arcade1up Defender cabinet was just a reskin of the Midway, so the button layout, even though it had all the buttons you needed, was just a reskin of Mortal Kombat, and it didn't really work, and people really complained about it. One of the benefits of this is track mode. It just comes on automatically. It shows through the games. Out of the 10 games, 3 of them actually have sound. So Gauntlet, Wizard of War, and Gorf all do the sounds like they did in the arcade. None of the other machines do, and now that I think about it, I don't know if they did in the arcade either, but it's a nice little touch. So I know it's pretty hard to tell from this video, but this lit marquee really is crisp, it really is sharp, and it really stands out in a darkened room. And here's a picture taken under the black light of our arcade. You can see how crisp and clear the marquee actually looks. Alright, so let's talk about another positive. Game selection. You have an amazing selection here. Gauntlet, Defender, Clax, Root Beer Tapper, Bubbles, Joust, Rampage, Wizard of War, Sinistar, and Gorf. As far as the selection goes, they're just ones that I really like playing. A couple of them were in the arcade that kind of were quarter eaters, so it's really nice to be able to just go through it here. Some of these games, Rampage, Gauntlet, they're not really one-player games. They're more of a 2, 3-player game. You know, Gauntlet is a 4-player game, and it was one of the best things you could have. You're not going to get that here. The best you're going to get is 2. The reason I say that, we tilt this up, if you can see right here, and I'll have a close-up in a little bit, this is actually a USB. You can plug in a USB controller, and it'll play this game. As a matter of fact, let's take a look. boom! It's like it's just magic. So which controllers work with this thing? Amazingly, almost everything I threw at it. PS3 and PS4 controllers both work with through a USB cord, as well as the Xbox One and the new Series XX controllers. Both of them work. The 360 controller that is hardwired worked. And a 360 controller using a little Microsoft dongle that you can pick up worked flawlessly. It didn't even have to sync up. It just instantly recognized it, popped up, and started working. And which ones didn't work? All of the USB knockoff, wannabe, Retrolink, you name it, they don't work when I plug it in. It doesn't recognize it, and it actually freezes up the system so I can't use other controllers. I even tried the controller that comes with the new C64. It didn't see it whatsoever. So you're a little bit hit or miss on all the generics. I don't have a Logitech, but I've been told it also plugs in quickly and easily, so maybe the nice higher end USB joysticks do, not the kind of cheap ones that you're apt to throw at your Raspberry Pi. But if you have a Xbox or PlayStation from the 3 or the 360 up, those controllers are going to work, and you're not going to be playing them all at the same time, so just plug one in and play. It lets you play the two players at the same time, and it's really good. Also nice, and it is something that you have been able to get on Raspberry Pi in the past, but when you pick a game, it shows you the exact layout. I know on Raspberry Pi it's a little difficult because you're trying to get it to match exactly what buttons you have. On this one, it already does, shows the exact same thing that's going on. It's nice. Press start, goes right to the game, starts you up with a couple credits. Hit the button. The sound is really nice. It does have adjustable sound. Tells you what it is because it's almost like a TV. That's about as long as my normal games used to last on this. I have to be really honest, I stink so bad at Defender, but just having played this a few times on here, I've gotten a little better at it. Not like that though. When you're done with whatever game you're in, hold down two buttons, and it actually brings you to a pause menu. You can resume, reset, or totally quit the game. If you quit the game, it brings you to this menu. It's nice, it's easy. The great thing about this is you don't have to figure out how it works. When we set up a Raspberry Pi, we know exactly how it works. We know the intricacies. Have a friend come over, you have to explain it to him or do it for him. I can actually put this thing up, set it on the wall, and just have friends come over and play it. I can have a party and it's there and people can play it. So Partycade is actually a pretty good word for it. The games themselves, I'm not going to actually get in the review. If you know the games, you know how they play, if you need to see how each and every one of them goes, there's a few other videos out there. I just don't want to take up your time getting into that when there's already how it works. I will say this though, each and every game does feel like I'm in the arcade playing it as far as how all the interaction goes, and that's a definite positive. Alright, let's get into the negatives. And amazingly enough, for a sub $200 machine, I don't have that many. A little nitpick I have is that this the protector, there's a plastic protector that goes across, and right out of the box it moves. It goes up and down. You can kind of get your finger underneath it. It's not quite flush. I'm going to adjust the screws a little bit and see if I can get to lay flat. I'm sure it's not that big a deal, but it's not immediately ready out of the box. Speaking of screws, these. You can see them even, I'm sure, in the video. They're silver. They stand out. There's a gap and there's a hole, so no covers are put on it. They didn't go with black or anything like that. Just these silver screws. They really stand out, and it detracts. It takes away from the game. The joystick, it's not that great. It doesn't click that much, and as you play it, the ball just kind of keeps coming loose. So I constantly find myself grabbing and twisting, in between levels, in between deaths of guys. It's a little bit annoying, and I wish I didn't have to really worry about that. And the number one gripe I have, the buttons. These push buttons, they're pretty craptastic. They're mushy. They don't have a good sense of feel to it. You got to push it all the way down to get it to go. It doesn't come back quite as fast as I'd like it to. On a game like Defender, that you're just pushing the buttons and you're hitting that fire as fast as you can, it's just not optimal. Alright, it's time for the verdict. It's a definite win. It's a definite must buy. Sub $200, and the form factor is good. It takes up very little space. All the games play great. Overall, it just looks good. It sounds good. I'm very impressed. I didn't think I was ever going to like an Arcade1up game. I can actually see myself getting a few more of these and putting them around through the arcade. So glad you tuned in. We're going to have some more videos about this, and the next one's coming up. I've already purchased the buttons, a joystick, and the new screws to set this thing apart. Going to have it mounted in the arcade, so you're going to be able to see exactly what it looks like when it's all said and done, and you can get a full feel of what it is. I'll even break down the full cost of what it's going to be to you if you want to take this up, and it's not very hard to do at all. Thanks for tuning in.
You're not Tinsel Kitty. Who are you?